We would like to begin by respectfully acknowledging the Gimoy Wallabara Yidinji people, the traditional custodians of the land in which we meet and record this podcast on. Art vs. Artist is a no BS podcast that dives into the raw technical guts of the creative industries. I'm your host, Yana Dryden, filmmaker, international award winner, and most importantly, Best Film and People's Choice Award winner at Understory 2024. We bring in the heavyweights, the pros, the visionaries, the ones shaping the scene to break down what it really takes to make art that hits hard and holds up in North Queensland. By interviewing artists, we uncover the gems, the grit, and the game-changing insights that fuel the future of creativity, backed by the Creative Life crew at Cairns Regional Council. Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of Art vs. Artist. My name's Yana, and today I have the amazing Jonathan Shiff, who is the leading creator of some of Australia's and the world's most popular television shows. I know you're going to know them. I'm going to hand it over to him, and he's going to tell you all about it.
Thank you for having me. Well, I am the story originator and producer and executive producer of Jonathan M. Shiff Productions, which is based in Far North Queensland and has been producing such series as Ocean Girl, H2O Just Add Water, The Bureau of Magical Things, and about 30-odd other shows in my career. But most of those stories were written here in Far North Queensland and are inspired by the reef and the rainforest right here where we live.
Wonderful. Jonathan, can I just say on behalf of young girls and women now from all over the world, thank you for improving the way we play mermaids underwater.
Oh, it's good to hear.
I've got to ask, where were you that moment that you had this jolt of inspiration and said, I am going to make mermaid movies?
You know, actually, to be honest, I made mermaids in a different way prior. My first underwater project was Ocean Girl in the early 90s. I was babysitting my, I think, then 5-year-old daughter on the beach in Port Douglas. And the inspiration came, it actually started about a girl, like a Tarzan type idea, because I find the rainforest and the environment here so inspiring that I had an idea for a girl who wakes up in a rainforest, but it was a sci-fi concept. And then she jumps down from a coconut tree in 4 Mile Beach and runs into the water of the Great Barrier Reef and swims underwater and befriends a humpback whale, which we actually did for 3 years in Ocean Girl. So that was the predecessor to H2O, Just Add Water, of course. But a lot of the skill sets were similar skill sets. You know, filming underwater is an entirely different challenge, and there's a lot of expertise. You couldn't find a better place in the world to do rainforest and reef than Far North Queensland.
I would imagine filming young people underwater would be incredibly difficult. Like, take me through the process of holding the breath, the technical tanks. Like, how does all that work?
Well, look, you've got to be able to swim, obviously. And so it starts in the audition process because we're auditioning, getting down to a list from an acting point of view. You're not looking for swimming at first. You're looking for performance, for the other attributes, for the understanding, the presentation of the role. So it's an acting audition process. When you get down to the top 2 or 3, it's handed over to our stunt coordinator, who will then take the candidates, guys or girls, to the Olympic pool or, up here to the Cairns pool, and put them through their paces and see what their stamina is and what their aptitude underwater is. We'll also put in cameras underwater to see what people look like underwater. People look different underwater.
Smile?
Yeah, smiling underwater. Well, having your eyes open underwater is a skill set in its own. If you've not got a mask or on scuba and you're not doing scuba underwater acting, which is a lot easier than freediving, because, for instance, the H2O mermaids would have a nurse on set and she would put milk in their eyes in between takes to just settle down the eyes from the salt water and the stinging, and you can't see anything underwater, frankly. We had girls bumping into sharks and stuff underwater, small sharks, quite friendly, not big sharks. But the skill sets of acting underwater, the skill sets of even shooting underwater from a film perspective are very different. In terms of the fact you've got to have stunts, you've got to have safety and people on scuba, and you've got to have, resting floaties and stuff up the top. It's quite strenuous. It's quite arduous. It takes a lot of courage. Ocean Girl was particularly courageous. She had a stunt double. And there was often discourse between her and the stunt double because she kept in the real girl, Marjana, wanted to do all of the action scenes. And she was very athletic, very strong, gorgeous on camera, terrific performance skills. It's kind of weird now that her children are watching the show. Her own children are now watching the show. That's the case with our H2O mermaids as well. So there's a generational transitions. But filming underwater is challenging. Our director of photography, Simon Christides from H2O Just Add Water, just finished shooting Tom Cruise in Mission Impossible. So these are high-skilled heads of department, high skills. But they were built, he was shooting for us for 6 years underwater. So we do, when you've got 22 people underwater doing drama, it becomes quite a global skill set. And Far North Queensland was a no-brainer for where you'd want to make those sort of movies.
I think it's so fascinating that you live in Port Douglas, like an hour up the road, and would never have known that. You just mentioned before that you have these shows. They're all over the world. Like, can you please take us through that? Would you say Ocean Girl was in how many different languages?
Ocean Girl was in about 130 countries. It was a very big hit in the early 90s and mid-90s on Disney Channel America and traveled worldwide. We did many, many shows. I've been doing this for over 30 years. So we've done a lot of children's TV and just children's TV, and I originate everything. So Port Douglas is a good place to be based because it has the rainforest and the reef, and there's a certain energy in Far North Queensland. It's a kind of untamed part of Australia, as you know, in terms of not just in terms of weather and the fact we get cyclones and extremes, but in terms of the fact that this part of the world, this part of Australia, has a certain energy that can't be tamed, that is primal and wild. It's not unusual to find people saying, "Oh, this looks like Jurassic Park," or because it's 150 million-year-old rainforest. It's pristine. The reef is a jewel, and so there's an energy to creative process here that you won't get if you're sitting in a coffee shop in the city and so on. And so we're very blessed to have that, and I've found that to be very productive. When I've been originating and writing and developing, not everything comes in 5 minutes. There's a process to creating, and every artistic process can be painful and non-productive, and there are many dead ends and many failures, and it's not organically something that just lucks out, straight away.
Oh, wow. The inspiration as well. Can you take me through what that looks like for you, like the discipline of writing and actually taking something from an idea all the way through to, well, I guess getting it green-lighted?
Okay, that's a long process to answer, but let me give you an encapsulated version. Yeah. Look, it really is about, as a filmmaker, you need to have a vision of what you're going to end up with. Doesn't matter what you're making. You could be making something for 15 million as we do, or you could be making something for, $1,000, or $500, You could be shooting on your iPhone, but it's good to have a vision of where you're going and what story you're telling, So the first thing is story. It's not about plot. And there's a difference between plot and story. A lot of people jump into who does what and when. You need to know what the story is you're trying to tell. And what sometimes, when I develop projects, I don't actually know the plot. I don't even know all the characters, but I kind of I have an image of a scene, or I have an emotion of a scene, or I have an inspiration. And that's the building block to me. You must have a vision of where you're going. In our case, we are blessed with the fact that we've had a lot of success. And so we are known globally. And now we live in a world not just of selling country by country, which we did for many, many years. 25 years we were selling country by country. We have a fabulous distributor in Germany, ZDF Studios, who is our agent, who effectively do the markets and they're selling, and various countries come to them and they make the sales, We're very blessed to have had them. They visit Far North Queensland often. They love it too. And Australia's been very good for kids TV until recently. Very good for kids TV. But so once you've got a vision and once I then start a dialogue with a team or a small team, or lately with just one story producer, Mark Sheriffs, who's, in my opinion, the real genius and gift behind bringing that, seed to blossom, and so we chat. We chat for half a day every day during the week, and just sit by the pool in Port Douglas and try and brainstorm with him and develop it. And soon what began as a German of an idea or an emotion or, becomes a log line or a premise. If you can't actually tell someone what you're doing in a short sentence or two, it's going to be quite hard to get into the market because people have small attention spans, and so do the audience sometimes. And particularly for a children's audience, if it gets too complex or too convoluted, you lose kids because they don't have the patience to meander through all different passageways, And also because I just do kids TV or tween TV or young teen TV or young adult TV, you have to be cognizant of other factors like it can't be sexist or violent or dark or, because we live sadly in a world that's got enough issues at the moment, and that's not escapist entertainment, So also it should have a positive feel to it. That's just my personal take, because I'd rather do uplifting or positive energy than dark, brooding, violent ones, which generally drive older, 20-plus-year-old drama. From the idea and from working with my story producer, I generate at least a page. And then from there, you can then drill into the characters, build the world, build the universe, the story world. Where are we shooting it? The physical stuff. Where are we shooting it? What's available? What are the toys? Who are the characters that will populate it? How do you get this story? You develop it, it becomes, the universe gets broader. Like suddenly lighting a fire at night and you can see beyond the tree line, and the world grows out. And from that, I would present that in our case to my partners in the commercial field. So the German distributor would have a say in whether it ignites anything in their eyes because they're in touch with the market. We have a good relationship with the German broadcasters, with many broadcasters, but certainly in Germany, where we've been a leading contributor to their catalogue for many years. And then the physical process of building out, you're doing workshops, which we've held in Port Douglas from time to time, where you're bringing in 8-9 people and you're spending 4 or 5 days and you're workshopping and literally whiteboarding at my house, whiteboarding and stopping only for a short lunch break. I'm always keen to get back, but a short lunch break, or you're having dinner and bonding. And so you're developing and fleshing out and immersing yourself, and you come out of that with, 13 episode ideas on a whiteboard. And from that, you can commission scripts. You've got to then decide where you're shooting, where's the studios, where's the locations, hiring the crew, and so on. In my case, I'm very lucky because I was a lawyer before. And so I entered the industry at 30 and went to film school at 30. So I had kind of left and right brain ideas. I was bored being a lawyer. But
it's a big jump. Yeah.
Well, some people are happy being a lawyer. But in my case, I just found it unsatisfying, and I'd always yearned since I was in my teens to be a filmmaker. and a storyteller. And so I just thought, I'll give this a try for a few months and see what happens. It turned into a year, and that turned into a career. So I was very lucky. But, if when you're conceiving a project, it's inevitable. You can't work in a vacuum, because basically you can, but you're not going to find it very easy. So if you don't know, it doesn't matter if you're doing a documentary or a drama. If you don't know your subject matter or how you're going to shoot it or what you're going to shoot on or whether you can get permission to do that. And, some years ago, we got a silver medal for Wicked Science in New York festivals, and I went to the presentation ceremony, and I was blown away that the gold medal, the winning medal, went to an English series done by school kids who just took a camera on a London bus, and they basically just shot everything on the bus: relationships, breakups, hookups, people crying, people celebrating. The entire thing was filmed from the top of a London bus with a bit of B-roll of going around London, and so you got some cutaways. It was fantastic.
That's fascinating.
It was like really inexpensive, beautifully presented, but real. The characters were great. It was just a treat. And so I saw then you don't need to have 150 crew and $15 million. You can have $10 and an iPhone. But you've got to know your vision. You've got to have some idea of where you're going. And as I say, left and right brain, in the sense that unless you know the mechanical stuff a little bit, it's very hard as an artist to work in a vacuum. Of course, when you're an emerging filmmaker, you tend to be, as I was, you tend to be very driven or very passionate, And I was very driven and very passionate, certainly in the early years. In fact, I'm a bit embarrassed to admit, but certainly for the first 10, 15 years of my career, I didn't stop to take a breath. I was very driven, very passionate, and very determined. And they were valuable assets, as they would be you could be an athlete and they're still valuable assets to have. I mean, looking back now, you kind of think, would have been good if I had a bit more balance in my life.
Right.
So you tend, and also what would be good is being driven and being passionate, you can be hard person to deal with, problematic artist. But I'm not saying I was necessarily that hard, but you tend to sacrifice your personal life, family, kids, marriage, girlfriends, boyfriends, you tend to be so immersed in it that and it's bad in a way, in the sense that if I look back now with any regrets, it was that passion was essential to be a filmmaker, but the drive and the obsession was borderline, and so that tended to, you actually do less good work when you're stressed or when sometimes it's better just to be a bit more chill. Too chill, you never get anything done.
That's right.
But there's a balance to be had.
And I guess you've got to find where those boundaries are.
Those boundaries still come to me today, and yet we are, one of the leading children's producers in the world. But still today, I still feel the pressure of originating projects and coming up with, in fact, it's the opposite pressure now, because it's like having a good album and then you go back in the studio as a musician and they go, oh, we want something as good as that but better. And you think, oh, my God, now I've got to come up better with the last one. But that was kind of my best work, So, and also it's a different pressure now. It's not about trying to show people I can do this. It's more about, should I go through the footsteps that are set out ahead of me, because I can see them as I walk up the hill, those footsteps. But then that's not very original or new, and then you think, oh, no, let's try a different pathway. Let's go through the rainforest, where no one's been for a while. And then you find, some people come back to you like broadcasters and go, that's really interesting, Jonathan, but we kind of wanted more mermaids, or do you know what I mean? So there is that success brings different challenges.
Yeah. Be able to take those creative risks like those kids on that bus. I mean, that's amazing. It just proves that it can be done with a new set of eyes.
Totally, and look, to be honest, I think whilst this is the most difficult time for children's TV that I can remember in 35 years of my career in Australia. This is really a catastrophe. We are living through the darkest time for children's and young people to do any content, because the broadcasters, the streaming services, and the federal government have killed children's TV. It is now impossible to get a children's TV, virtually impossible. There's possibly like a 2-inch crack in a door to get one broadcaster, to buy your product. This is a very difficult time, and for new material to be an emerging filmmaker. So I think that will change, because it's sad to see this, because, Australia produced Round the Twist. It produced Dance Academy. It produced H2O. It produced the leading children's content in the world. C classification, which was killed off by the Morrison government, and the Albanese government is now completely buried it. So basically not a single federal government is supporting children's TV or streaming quota for Australian content. So we have one of the worst governments in the world in terms of supporting cultural agendas. But I think in time it will change. Governments will change, agendas will change, or parents particularly will realise their children are watching carjacking and machete crime on TikTok and Facebook. That's the content that we're giving to 8 to 15-year-olds. They're their heroes. That's the aspirational content. It's not a surprise to me to see things going through the roof with youth crime, including far north Queensland. It's not a surprise to me, because there is no role models, there's no content. We're spoon-feeding people unrestricted access to TikTok and so on, and it's not just dance clips, it's violent clips or bad role modeling or weird, disruptive behavior. It's antisocial. They used to see, I'm not saying all kids' TV had that, but, and you can still, for young kids, they can watch Bluey, which is fabulous, but live action, cannot see it. Cannot see it. And to have Australian voices for Lost, to have Australian heroes and heroines lost for young people, means that whilst generations of their parents had it, it's now lost to the present generation, and they need to have live action in order to see themselves
I can't
on
see
screen,
it, you can't be it.
and to tell stories, their stories, in their voices, not American voices or other voices, in Aussie voices, in far north Queensland voices, to tell our stories. It's very important. I think it's important we strive to get it back again. But on the positive side, I see amazing stuff now. I segue sideways to Ocean Girl. I did in the early 90s. In the early 90s, my younger brother was producing Madonna and Michael Jackson in Los Angeles as a music video producer. Perhaps I followed his footsteps a little bit. So he was doing CGI. CGI was just emerging. They were the first to try CGI in the world, for music videos and so on. And that's how I got the idea of, and the knowledge to bravely venture into, on the Gold Coast, we had a company do the underwater city of Orca in Ocean Girl, and that was the beginning of CGI. And from that, we were able to do submersibles underwater and actors pretending to ride in them and stuff. I mean, the Ocean Girl was swimming for real on the Barrier Reef with a fiberglass full-size humpback whale. That's another story. But we were able to see technology break through into drama and trickle down to be accessible for children's TV budgets, because we're not Hollywood budgets, We're little Aussie drama series budgets, which are still substantial, but they're not Hollywood. Today, I see that with AI. Today, I envisage things coming exponentially down the track to us, which will allow young filmmakers to do stuff you couldn't dream about doing through my career. They'll be able, it's whatever they can imagine will be realized, And so I think that's an amazing we're entering a golden age of content. It's a great time to be an emerging young filmmaker, particularly in far north Queensland, because location, amazing. There isn't anywhere like this in the world. Technology, completely accessible in far north Queensland. You can be out on the reef and get a signal. You can be working digitally on the beach. You can be anywhere. And so and the AI and the stuff you can do now on AI and the stuff that will soon be possible on AI means you can be doing virtual landscapes and drama stories that you would never be able to do. You don't even need to be on a London bus anymore, because you can just sit yourself on a chair in your bedroom and you can create the London landscape. You can create the bus ride. Do you know what I mean?
And that shift, I can just only imagine what that must look like for you, from going from Ocean Girl and that fiberglass humpback whale to what that is now and what that is going to continue to be.
But it's coming fast now, and it's coming at a more rapid rate than in my early days as a filmmaker. But I think, having said that, I don't think the technology is going to replace the people.
No.
Because machines don't feel pain. And I think the emotional journey, the human connectivity, that's still an essential part of the process.
I love, and I just wanted to touch on that as well, going back to the fact that you're in touch with your story developer every weekday for half a day as well. Just highlights that even though particularly as an emerging creator as well, it can be quite isolating as well, as how important it is to have people around you to be able to bounce those ideas and develop that.
If you've got the right people, yes. You need to be, when I was at Swinburne Film School 40 years ago, a filmmaker, Werner Herzog, came and did a masterclass for a few hours, and he made a famous film, Fitzcarraldo, where they pushed a boat up a mountain in South America, much like pushing a boat up a mountain on the Daintree, not easy. And we asked him, how do you go about, like, you're taking all these people because we film a lot in jungles. I love jungles and water, obviously. But how do you choose, the 100 people you're going to take? Because some of them will go a bit crazy up there. It's getting a bit apocalypse now when you're stuck on a mountain for a month shooting day and night, and it's not easy. He said, I play football with them.
Oh, I love this.
And I said, well, I'm not quite following you there. And he said, well, I play football for 2 days, soccer in his case for 2 days with them. He said, after a day and a half, I can tell you the grips, the gaffers, the camera guy department, the makeup guys, the wardrobe. I can tell you who's going to be a team player, who's going to have a sense of humor when they're really hot and sweaty, and who's going to fall over and get up again, who's going to have fun, who's going to bond. It's important to have the right people around you. When I started in the business, I kind of figured I didn't have a lot of those skills. I didn't have a lot of that knowledge, only academic knowledge from film school, frankly. So I went out and I recruited people who knew how to do stuff. And I always found that a great asset, I trained at a company in Melbourne called Crawford Productions, who in the 80s were the major drama producer, 500 people making drama there. And my first job was as a legal advisor to Carson's Law, so they were doing a legal series. When that company started to wind down and fold, I had an idea for my first drama series, Kelly, about a retired police dog, German Shepherd. And I found the crew had all been laid off and there was no work. And so I had 90% of the Flying Doctors crew. The BBC bought my show and called it the Flying Dog Show because it's Jonathan's taken the Flying Doctors crew. So I knew that if I surrounded myself with camera people, makeup people, wardrobe people, and they knew what they were doing, then people would come to me in pre-production and go, does this shirt look okay? Is this all right? With this color for the dog's collar? This is how we'll do the stunt. We're going to race a moving train. We've closed off the train line in the day. We knew, and so I knew that if you've got the right people around you, so even as an emerging filmmaker, it doesn't matter the skill set, the level of experience that people have. It's about the energy. It's about your relationship with them. If they've got good energy, if they're positive, you can do anything, and so you'll find that there are gifted people, because filmmaking is a collaborative process. Filmmaking is not, it can be, one person can take a camera and shoot amazing stuff. You can go kayaking out on the reef and shoot amazing stuff and come back with some great footage, But you probably got other actors in it. They might be, minke whales or wherever you're bumping into out there, but you've got other characters. The location is a character here. The location is an amazing character here. One of the principal characters here. You can't find a location like this in Brisbane or in New York City or Paris. They would die to have a location like that. So it's very evocative, So I think, the relationship you've got, even with guys and girls at school and with friends, with family, it's about the human stories you're telling, but it's also about the relationship and the vibe on set, as you're making the process. The journey may be as valuable as the destination, and the destination may only be as good as the process. There are numerous stories about movies. They can be huge budget movies that are broken down on set, and the end result looks crap because basically it shows, And then there are low budget movies that have been done. You can go out and shoot on an iPhone, and have a good time doing it. And there's something about that energy that's still reflected in the characters, in the story, and it can be a documentary, So it's a artistic collaboration, and so you need to be, not careful. I suppose be careful, but you need to be looking at whether they help you fulfill your vision or whether they're actually the biggest obstacle in you fulfilling your vision, but in a nice way. And surrounding yourself with the former, not the latter, is a good idea.
I feel like really healthy leadership and building that cohesive team in order to have that collaborative approaches, whether you've got 150 people or 5 is so important.
And it depends exactly. Now, I mean, different machine movie making at the level we're doing it. It's the money's bigger, the stakes are higher, the action scenes require stunts and safety, and so you tend to have this army of people, and it actually sometimes has an inverse relationship with getting things done because you've got a lot of people around you and you've got to communicate well. But I tend to be very, I try and be very collaborative and embracing, and I respect people's views. I talk to cast, I talk to crew. I'm really not out there negotiating the scripts a lot because the scripts are approved by, you've sold already the scripts. And so the people who've bought those scripts, the pre-sales you've made or the people who are financing, they don't want you to deviate, make something completely different. I mean, it's been done, but it's not well appreciated sometimes. But I mean, if you've got, most of filmmaking is in pre-production, is not in production. Most of filmmaking is in pre-production. Production's great because you should enjoy that time. But the real stress, aside from the fact Cyclone Jasper comes or something, and it's not so easy to get through that day. But, or in the case of Ocean Girl, the chain breaks from the Coast Guard are pulling it back. And the whale sinking on the $100,000 whale sinking on the Barrier Reef.
I was going to ask you,
you've got to dive in and get it.
Take me through one of your worst moments.
That's certainly up there with one of the worst moments, and it's dark and as black as anything. It's inky black underwater, and someone dives in to collect the chain, and you're worried about whether they're coming up again and stuff. And that's not with a stunt supervisor, so you're thinking, oh my God, we can't do this sort of stuff. There are scary things that happen like that. Of course, and then there's things you can't control, like if you've got mermaids who get tails when they're wet and you're working in Far North Queensland, it does rain here. And so, that's a limiting factor. But I guess I try and be as collaborative and embracing as I can to the crew because I'm interested in the vibe on set. I'm interested in what they think. People come up with ideas, good cast always have good ideas and inputs. If they don't sit, you can tell them that, but it's really good to have an open mind about some of this stuff. The DPs, the camera people who are shooting from you are looking through a camera. So they know that, for instance, this shot might look better if we just kind of go 2 feet to the right because then you'll see the lovely coconut palm over there. They've got ideas. They understand about lighting and about energy and
The
moment.
professionals in that we trust them as professionals. Yeah,
I'll talk to the unit guys will know whether everybody's comfy and happy and what they need. It's good. The caterers are vital. It doesn't matter if you're getting caterers like my student films, which were, somebody's nonna was making lunch, and so, it's a team, it's a family, effectively, if you're regarded as such. So I am kind of creatively open in the sense I'm wanting, I guess, people to share my dream. I'm wanting people to share my energy, and I think it's helpful too if they kind of get some satisfaction and feel it's a collective pat on the back. It's not just, I would never take credit for any of my shows that I was the only one who made them. In other words, I might have had a spark of an idea, but to light that fire, and keep the fire lit for 7 months of photography, you need a family, you need a whole team around you, and everybody pulls.
Reminds me of that saying, it's if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go further, go together. Thanks for listening, everyone. I'm sure you're enjoying this discussion just as much as I am. We're going to continue it in next week's episode.